the Qtv Nightly News, which is also on Q Radio 103.3 FM. And I am Mam Nabuka. Thank you for joining us. Here are the headlines. The government of the Gambia, through the Ministry of Transport, Works and Infrastructure, has approved an increase in public transport fares following a rise in global fuel prices. The Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Dauda A. Jallow, has described the rearrest of Ousseynou Bojang and his sister Ami Bojang moments after their acquittal as unlawful and regrettable. The Calvary United Community Church has welcomed a team of 37 medical personnel from Global Health Outreach in the United States for a 5-day free medical outreach aimed at improving access to healthcare services in the Gambia. The World Peace Organization Gambia chapter has carried out its first honey harvest for 5 young trainees in Bafuloto in the West Coast region 5 months after training them in beekeeping. In international news, Ismail Omar Gele has been re-elected for a 6th term after securing an overwhelming majority in Djibouti's latest presidential election, further extending his 27-year grip on power. Those were the headlines. Now the news in detail. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now, the government of the Gambia, through the Ministry of Transport, Works and Infrastructure, has approved an increase in public transport fares following a rise in global fuel prices. Under the new tariff, commercial vehicle fares in the Greater Banjul area will increase by $5, while fares in the West Coast region will go up by $15. Usman Jata reports.
The impact of global energy challenges is becoming increasingly visible as sustained tensions in the Middle East continue to drive up fuel prices worldwide, affecting livelihoods in many countries, including the Gambia. More than 6,000 kilometers away from the Gambia, these developments are now being felt locally, particularly in the transport sector. Diesel prices have risen from $84.60 to $95 per litre, a 12.29% increase, while petrol has increased by 18.79% from $82.50 to $98 per litre. These increases have now translated in higher transport fares. Following consultations between the government and transport unions, discussions focus on mitigating the impact of rising fuel costs and addressing fare hikes already being implemented by some drivers. Both parties agreed on an adjustment of $5 for commercial vehicles operating within the Greater Banjul area and $15 for routes in the West Coast region. Motor tricycles are excluded from the new fare structure. The ministry describes the adjustment as a temporary measure in response to mounting global economic pressures. Authorities say more than $316 million has been allocated as fuel subsidy for April, aimed at easing the burden on both transport operators and commuters. Officials also say discussions are ongoing with the possibility of further adjustments in rural transport fares as the situation evolves. The ministry has reaffirmed its commitment to ensuring a safe, accessible and affordable transport system for all. As tensions continue to escalate in the Middle East, the Gambia, like many African countries, is expected to navigate the economic impact, while the African Union has recommended strategic reserves for food and fuel, as well as strengthened continental security coordination. Osman Jata, QTV News.
The Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Dauda A. Jallow, has described the rearrest of Ousseynou Bojang and his sister Ami Bojang moments after their acquittal as unlawful and regrettable. He made the remarks during a press briefing that also addressed the appointment of a British national as special prosecutor to handle Jammeh-era crimes. The siblings had been tried and acquitted after a lengthy trial over the shooting to death of 2 PIU officers. Usman Jata reports.
The Justice Minister began the second half of his briefing with an overview of the Directorate of Public Prosecution's performance between January and December 2025, These covered cases before the High Court, Magistrates Court and Appellate Courts, spanning serious offences such as murder, rape, robbery, drug trafficking, financial crimes and human trafficking. Minister Jallow outlined the prosecution's case profile for 2025.
In 2025, 70 cases were concluded by the department at various levels, 70. Out of that 70, 46 cases were decided on the merit. Acquittal and discharge for 2025, January to December, were 12 cases. In 2025, the Directorate filed 30 new indictments.
According to him, out of 70 concluded cases, the Directorate secured 36 convictions or upheld sentences, representing a conviction rate of 78%. He said this performance places the Gambia's prosecution service among the best in the sub-region, although he did not give the details for other countries in the sub-region. The minister also provided a breakdown of offences and convictions recorded during the year.
The prosecution concluded 11 murder and manslaughter trials in 2025. 8 resulted in convictions: financial crime, fraud and money laundering. 3 convictions were secured in this category. 7 convictions were secured in robbery and theft matters.
Perhaps the minister was compelled to mention these statistics because, in the public's mind, what makes the headlines are the high-profile cases which the Ministry of Justice lost, including the widely followed Ousainou Bojang versus the state, where at the conclusion of the trial, the accused was acquitted. After nearly 3 years in detention at the Mile 2 prison, Minister Jallow reacted to Bojang's subsequent rearrest.
It's not lawful, it's regrettable, it happened. So, after having been formally released from the prisons, he could not have been rearrested without a further court order, which I am not aware of.
He acknowledged that losing some cases is part of a functioning democracy, an independent judiciary and the rule of law.
The courts are not controlled by us. That's actually what we desired for as a democracy. The courts are supposed to be independent. They are supposed to assess evidence and reach a conclusion. But the process is an ongoing thing.
Responding to calls for his resignation, the minister defended his record and that of his ministry and rejected any suggestions of stepping down.
I am hired to even deal with those challenges, to find out why our case is being lost. How do we resolve them? How do we solve those problems to make sure we lost as few cases as possible? I am a minister. I'm serving at the pleasure of the president. If something arises that I think I could no longer take this, I would resign. I don't need somebody to advise me to resign.
As the debate continues over accountability and due process, attention will now turn to how future high-profile cases will be handled. Osman Jatta, QTV News.
The Calvary United Community Church has welcomed a team of 37 medical personnel from Global Health Outreach in the United States for a 5-day free medical outreach aimed at improving access to healthcare services in the Gambia. Jacqueline Coley reports.
The outreach, supervised by Dr. Mariatu Jallow, will see the team provide a range of medical services at Jamise Primary School in Brikama in the West Coast region. The visiting professionals, drawn from various medical fields, arrive in the country on April 10th and are expected to stay until April 17, 2026, with treatment scheduled from Monday, April 13th through Friday, April 17. Dr. Chuck Musia, a physiologist, tells us about GHO.
The Global Health Outreach is about sending people like ourselves to underserved people around the world. We're here in Gambia, but we go all over the world to underserved populations, and we serve, again, whoever walks through the door. We're happy to provide those services.
This initiative is the 6th medical outreach by Global Health Outreach in the Gambia, showing the organization's ongoing commitment to supporting the country's healthcare system. Medical Dr. Candy Overhauled reflects on the health conditions they diagnose and the services they will provide this year.
So the first year we were out in the country, we saw different disease states. We see a lot of chronic illnesses when we're in Brikama and near Banjul and Serekunda. We see a lot of diabetes, hypertension, a lot of wound care. We see strokes. This year what's unique is we actually brought a neurology nurse practitioner who will be here, so we're hoping to expand some services with that. We also have an occupational therapist this year.
Dr. Overhauled offered tips on how Gambia can maintain a healthy life after 6 years of health outreach in the Gambia.
So number one is maintaining a healthy weight. We don't see a lot of obesity here in the Gambia, so I think most people really have that down. Number two is a healthy diet. And so choosing more vegetables and fruits, less of the starchy foods, but as you know, that's the cheaper items, so that's your rice, your potatoes. Having more of the healthy meats like your fish, your cucumbers are very healthy, and just working on a healthy diet, less sodium, less salt.
The organizers say preparations are already on the way to ensure that such outreach programs are held twice a year, expanding their reach and impact across communities. The medical mission is expected to benefit hundreds of residents in Brikama and neighboring areas, especially those with limited access to healthcare services. Pastor Bidwell Mendy explained why Brikama is typically the location for GHO services and discussed whether there are plans to expand to rural areas.
I mean, everybody in Gambia knows that Brikama is like the heart of Gambia. And whatever takes place in Brikama, you can see by the turnout. That is the wish of many people. But considering the transportation constraint, it may not be possible. And that is why I like the idea of twice a year, if documentation is flexible for us, because sometimes it's too challenging. And I hate hitches when it comes to the benefit of the masses.
Global health initiatives such as this one can address increasing health challenges worldwide, reduce disparities in healthcare access within and between communities, and promote longer, healthier lives. Such outreach also highlights the importance of international collaboration in strengthening healthcare delivery and improving the well-being of vulnerable populations. Reporting for Qtv News, I am Jacqueline Kuli.
We will now go for a commercial break. When we return, we have more national, international, and sports news stories. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, this is the Qtv Nightly News, and I am Mam Nabuka. The World Peace Organization Gambia chapter has carried out its first honey harvest for 5 young trainees in Bafuloto in the West Coast region 5 months after training them in beekeeping. Usman Jata again.
5 months ago, 5 young people began a journey into beekeeping, trained by the World Peace Organization, a non-profit focused on sustainable initiatives that uplift communities. Today, that training is bearing fruit. Under the morning sun, bees move from flower to flower, gathering nectar. Back at the hive, the nectar is passed from bee to bee, gradually transformed and stored as honey in carefully built combs. Now, the trainees are harvesting that effort, lifting frames from the hive and extracting thick, golden honey. The process is delicate, filtered, settled, and bottled into a pure, natural product. Yankuba Bojang is one of the trainees witnessing his first harvest. We thank God for this journey. When we started, we prayed for success, and today we are proud. We encourage young people sitting idle to join us. Beekeeping has many benefits. The initiative is part of a broader effort to create opportunities for young people across the Gambia, using practical skills to improve livelihoods. Abubakar Ba is the project coordinator leading the training.
Today we harvested, and then after harvest we we are going to process it, and then after the processing we will have the honey on one side. Then the wax that remains, we're going to process it further into oil, body oil, lotion, and also we'll use that wax to process it into soap.
Country coordinator of World Peace Gambia, Sekou Keita, expressed gratitude for delivering a successful project while reaffirming his organization's commitment for greater youth training.
And we are also expecting more harvest in coming days because most of our boxes are already conceived and they are yet to be harvested by next week or so. So we are appealing to the general public, Gambian youth in general, so they can come up, they can join us and adventure in this honey production. Only benefits are there. We never knew of all this before, but thanks to our able coordinator, our able project manager who introduced us to this honey production, we are really thankful.
From flower to hive to table, honey production reflects patience, precision, and the power of small beginnings, now offering these young trainees a pathway to self-reliance. Osman Jatta, QTV News.
Coming up next is international news. Now, Ismail Omar Guelleh has been re-elected for a sixth term after securing an overwhelming majority in Djibouti's latest presidential election, further extending his 27-year grip on power in the strategically located Horn of Africa nation. Julian Jai has the rest of the details.
Long-serving President Ismail Omar Guelleh has won the country's latest election with about 97.8% of the vote, according to official results. His only challenger, Mohamed Farah Samatha, received just about 2%, making it an easy win for the long-term leader. Samatha's party, the Unified Democratic Center, CDU party, does not have a single parliamentary seat. Guelleh has been in power for 27 years and is now 78 years old. With this latest victory, he begins a sixth term in office. The median age of the population in Djibouti is approximately 25.2 years as of 2026. This indicates a relatively young population, with about half of the residents younger than this age and half older. It means the majority of the population have known no other president. Voter turnout was 80.4% on Friday, according to Djibouti media outlets. Roughly a quarter of the population, about 256,000 people, were registered to vote. The total population of about 1.18 million makes it the smallest in population in mainland Africa. President Guelleh was able to run again after the country removed the age limit for presidential candidates last year. Reports from Africa News, Al Jazeera and other outlets say the election was peaceful, but there was little real competition as major opposition groups did not take part. Djibouti is an important country because of where it is located, near a major sea route. Several countries, including the United States, China, France and Japan, have military bases there. With this result, Guelleh remains firmly in charge, and the country is expected to continue on the same path, even as some critics question how open the political system is. Reporting for QTV News, I am Juldenyai.
Also in international news, Sunday the 12th of April is the International Day of Human Spaceflight, honoring the pioneering achievement of Yuri Gagarin in 1961, when he became the first human to orbit Earth aboard Vostok 1. In 2026, the celebration highlights decades of exploration from early missions to the International Space Station and the next era of moon and Mars ambitions. Here is the story by Babukar Sise, narrated by Jules Denjai.
In 2026, humanity marks another International Day of Human Space Flight with a renewed sense of momentum. The journey began on April 12, 1961, when Yuri Gagarin completed a single orbit aboard Vostok 1. That milestone opened the door to decades of exploration.
From the training, but in 3D and absolutely.
From the Apollo moon landings to the assembly of the International Space Station, human presence in space expanded steadily through international cooperation and scientific ambition. Astronauts lived and worked in low Earth orbit for months at a time, conducting research that advanced medicine, material science, and our understanding of life beyond Earth. Recently, attention has turned back to the Moon. The Artemis missions aim to establish a sustainable lunar presence, with crew flights preparing to return humans to the surface and build long-term infrastructure. Beyond the Moon, plans for Mars exploration continue to evolve, driven by both government agencies and private companies pushing the boundaries of space flight. As the world gathers to commemorate this day in 2026, space agencies, scientists, and students alike reflect on how far humanity has come and how much further it can go. Satellites orbit silently overhead, lunar missions prepare for launch windows, and new technologies promise faster, safer journeys into deep space. The legacy of Gagarin's first flight continues to inspire generations who look toward the stars not just as distant lights, but as destinations. International collaboration remains key, ensuring that exploration benefits all of humankind as it steps into a future beyond Earth with unity and curiosity guiding the next great leap forward for all humanity together. Reporting for Qtv News, I am Julde Yai.
That report brings us to the end of this bulletin, but before we go, here's a recap of the headlines. The government of the Gambia, through the Ministry of Transport, Works and Infrastructure, has approved an increase in public transport fares following a rise in global fuel prices. The Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Dauda A. Jallow, has described the rearrest of Ousseynou Bojang and his sister Ami Bojang moments after their acquittal as unlawful and regrettable. The Calvary United Community Church has welcomed a team of 37 medical personnel from Global Health Outreach in the United States for a 5-day free medical outreach aimed at improving access to healthcare services in the Gambia. The World Peace Organization Gambia chapter has carried out its first honey harvest for 5 young trainees in Bafuloto in the West Coast region 5 months after training them in beekeeping. In international news, Ismail Omar Guelleh has been re-elected for a 6th term after securing an overwhelming majority in Djibouti's latest presidential election, further extending his 27-year grip on power. That's all for this bulletin. Join us tomorrow at 8 p.m. for another episode of the Week in Review with Ade Darami and Momodou Mboj. Thanks for watching.